Every single time you get a movie recommendation or you see one of those weirdly specific ads or even just use a map to get around, you are bumping into a field that has totally reshaped our world, data science. And it's not just about tech. It's about finding the hidden patterns in, well, pretty much everything. Today, we're going to break down exactly what it is and why it matters so much. So, the hype train for data science really left the station back in 2012. That's when the Harvard Business Review dropped this now famous article, calling it the sexiest job of the 21st century. I mean, talk about a bold claim, right? But it signaled a huge shift. Data science wasn't just for academics in a lab anymore, it was about to become a major powerhouse in the real world. Okay, so beyond the hype, beyond the flashy job titles, what are we really talking about here? What is this engine that's driving this massive revolution? That's the big question we're going to unpack. To really understand what data science is, you have to know that at its heart, it's not just one single thing. It's actually a super powerful mix of two really important fields. Think of it like this. Computer science brings the muscle. It gives us the powerful tools and algorithms to handle just ridiculous amounts of data. And then statistics brings the brains. It gives us these scientific methods to find the real meaningful patterns and not get fooled by randomness. One gives you the power, the other gives you the insight. And when you put them together, that's when you can turn a mountain of raw information into actual knowledge. But you might be wondering, why now, right? Why did this field just explode in the last decade or so? Well, the answer is pretty simple. The unbelievable amount of data we all started creating. We are living in the era of big data. And this explosion of information is what we call big data. Now, to really get a handle on it, people in the field use this really simple but smart framework, the 3 V's. This helps explain why the data we have today isn't just bigger, it's a completely different beast. First up, there's volume. And the scale is just mind-bending. In the year 2020 alone, we as a planet generated 6.8 zettabytes of data. I mean, what even is a zettabyte? To put it in perspective, that's like filling up more than 7 billion laptops with data every single year. That is the ocean of information we are all swimming in right now. Then you've got velocity, the insane speed at which all this new data is being born. Just take Twitter, for example. Every single day, its users create something like 400 billion events. That's not a gentle stream. It's a relentless fire hose of information that's just always on, full blast. And finally, we have variety. You see, data isn't just about neat rows in a spreadsheet anymore. Not even close. It's the photos on your phone, it's videos, it's audio files, social media posts, your emails, your texts, all of it. A huge, and I mean huge, part of a data scientist's job is to be a master translator, turning all this messy, chaotic, human stuff into something a computer can actually understand. So we've got this massive, chaotic flood of data. How does a data scientist actually manage to tame it and turn it into something useful? Well, let's walk through what they actually do day to day. This is basically the roadmap for almost any data science project. First, you have to gather the right data. It all starts there. Then comes the part that nobody talks about, but takes up most of the time, cleaning it. Real-world data is a mess. It's full of errors and missing pieces. Once it's all cleaned up, you get to explore it, kind of like a detective looking for initial clues. That leads you to the cool part, modeling, where you use fancy algorithms to make predictions. But the job is not done. The final step is absolutely critical, interpreting. A brilliant model is totally useless if you can't explain what it means to other people so they can make better decisions. Now, a huge part of that process, especially at the beginning, is wrangling two totally different kinds of data. On one hand, you have structured data. That's the nice, neat, organized stuff, like a spreadsheet where everything is in its proper column. But most of the data in the world today is unstructured. Think of it like a giant shoebox full of photos, random notes, articles, and audio clips. The real magic of data science is figuring out how to take that chaotic shoebox and turn it into something a machine can actually make sense of. This ability to turn chaos into clarity, it's incredibly powerful. But you know what they say, with great power comes great responsibility. And that brings us to the very real, very human problems that pop up when all this power is misused or just misunderstood. So here's the thing you gotta remember. Data is not some perfect, objective truth. It's just a reflection of our world, and our world has all sorts of patterns and flaws baked right into it. So, what happens when we train these super powerful algorithms on data that reflects our own history, biases, and all? What happens when our own mistakes get encoded into the systems that start making decisions about our lives? This is what's called algorithmic bias. Just imagine a company builds an AI to help it screen resumes, and it trains it on all its past hiring decisions. Well, if that company has historically hired more men than women, the AI is going to learn that pattern. It'll start thinking that male candidates are just better, and it will start discriminating against equally qualified women. The algorithm isn't evil, it's just a mirror, and it's showing us the biases that were already there, but now they're amplified. And then there's the whole question of privacy. This one's a real head scratcher. Back in 2016, some researchers just published the profiles of thousands of OkCupid users. We're talking answers to really personal, sensitive questions, and they did it all without asking for consent. Now, the data was technically public on the site, but did anyone really agree to have it all bundled up and released for the world to analyze? It makes you ask a pretty fundamental question. When we put our lives online, who actually owns that information? Of course, you can't talk about data misuse without talking about the big one, the Cambridge Analytica scandal. This is where data from up to 87 million Facebook profiles was harvested, mostly without anyone's consent, and used to build these incredibly detailed psychological profiles for political ads. It was a chilling, real-world example of how our personal data can be weaponized. So to see how all these different pieces, the awesome technology, the business impact, and the tricky ethics, all come together, we have to look at one of the most legendary stories in data science history, the Netflix Prize. It's a fantastic tale of innovation, unexpected results, and a really important lesson. Way back in 2006, Netflix did something pretty radical. They put out a call to the entire world and offered up a grand prize of $1 million. And what did you have to do to win it? Solve one of their biggest problems. The challenge sounded simple enough. Take their movie recommendation algorithm at the time, which was called Cinematch, and make it just 10% better at predicting what movies people would like. Now, 10% might not sound like a lot, but trust me, it was an incredibly hard problem. And this public competition kicked off a 3-year global data science showdown that would literally change the game forever. And they did it. As you can see on this chart, where a lower number is better, after 3 years of intense work, a team called Belker's Pragmatic Chaos finally broke that 10% barrier and took home the $1 million prize. It was a massive win and a huge moment for the data science community. But here's the absolute craziest part of the story. Netflix never actually used the winning algorithm. It turned out to be way too complicated to actually run on their real-world systems. So, was the whole thing a waste of time? Oh, absolutely not. The real prize wasn't the $1 million. It was the explosion of new ideas and techniques. The stuff that was invented during that competition became the foundation for basically every recommendation engine we all use today on Spotify, Amazon, you name it. But there is one last crucial twist to this story. Netflix planned a second competition, but they had to cancel it suddenly. Why? Because some other researchers proved that even though the data was anonymized, they could figure out who individual users were just by matching their Netflix ratings to public movie ratings on sites like IMDb. It was a giant wake-up call for the entire industry. It proved that anonymous data isn't always so anonymous, and it kicked off this huge, important debate about privacy that we are still having today. And that, really, brings us to the central challenge of our time. Data science gives us these incredible, almost magical powers to innovate and solve problems. But it also gives us the tools for bias and control on a scale we've never seen before. So as we all generate more and more data every single second of every day, the question isn't just for the data scientists, it's for every single one of us. How do we build a future that uses all this amazing power for good without sacrificing our privacy and the things we value most?